complicated. Okay. As we did last year in Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippur, appropriate to the season, we switched from Reb Tzadok Hakohen to Reb Tzadok Takanas Hashavin, a different sefer of Reb Tzadok, same idea, in the sense of the practical implication of the Kabbalah and Chassidus of Teshuva. And last year and the year before we did Siman Aleph and Siman Beis, and today after learning his brief introduction, which is not so brief, we're going to do Siman Gimel. But here's the introduction, first page, first paragraph of Takanas Hashavin. If you have a sefer, just take a look. If you don't have a sefer, maybe you should buy a sefer, because it's every word is chashuv. So says Reb Tzadok as follows. B'yoma, if you look in Masechta Yoma, Pei Vav Amud Aleph, there the Gemara says Gedola Tshuva, and it's a likut of Amoraim, not Tanoim. There's a likut of Amoraim, Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Bar Chama, a likut of Amoraim, 7 opinions or aspects or understandings of what Teshuva is and what Teshuva can accomplish. Of course, first we have to define Teshuva according to Reb Tzadok, what he means by that. But the Gemara has 7. Gedola Teshuva shemagas had kisei hakavod. Gedola Teshuva shemevi refuah la'olam. Reish Lakish is probably the most famous of them all. Gedola Teshuva, we'll go through all of them. But Gedola Teshuva shezdoinos nasa keschuyos. There's so many 7 different aspects or opinions of what is the chiddush. Gedola, I think. Tell me if maybe the gentleman knows Shas better than I do, but I think when the Gemara uses the term Gedola, it means what makes this unusual and against every other rule that we know. Gedola, like it grew out of that. It's out of that geder. So the Gemara says Gedola Teshuva, 7 things. Ayin Sham, Sheva Memras, Begedula Sumalas HaTshuva. 7 different memras of the Amoraim, Begedula Sumalas HaTshuva. Being that I have it, that Gemara right here in my footnote, I will tell you the 7 milas of Teshuva. Number 1, Gedola Teshuva Shemevia Refuah La'olam. 2, Gedola Teshuva Shemagas Ad Kisei HaKavod. That's as far as we got to the Kisei HaKavod last year. Cut up to the Kisei HaKavod. Number 3, today, this time's learning, Gedola Teshuva Shedoche Es Losa Sei Shebetayra. Meaning, Teshuva is illegal. Docha Losa Sei Shebetayra. Number 4, Gedola Teshuva Shemekareves Es HaGeula. Teshuva brings the Geula. Gedola Teshuva Shezdoinos Nasis Like Kishkagais or Kischuyais. That's the 5th opinion of the Gemara. 6th, Gedola Teshuva Shemareches Yamav Ushnoisav Shaladam. Gives you longevity. Number 7, Gedola Teshuva Shebishvil Yachid Sha'asa Teshuva Meichlin Layu L'chol Olam Kulai. That if one person does Teshuva properly, so then the whole world has changed. The whole world has a mechila. Each one of these is requires a lot of, like research and learning. But there are 7 opinions. I'm holding myself back from randomly explaining them because I want to go in order. But this is what Reb Tzadok says in the introduction. Yadua, it's well known, Teshuva nimshach me'abina shebelev. It's well known that Teshuva is nimshach. It's an extension of bina shebelev. Is that well known to everybody? What does it even mean? No. What does it mean? Teshuva comes from bina shebelev. So, what's Teshuva? What's bina? And what's bina shebelev? Just to make it clear, this is already in the Gemara. All of this is in the Gemara because the Gemara says in Megillah that the Chachamim gathered in Yavne with Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai to be Masader the Shmona Esrei. And Shmona Esrei was written by the Anshe Knesset Agdola. So why were the Chacham Yavne was the end of the Bayis Sheni, Anshe Knesset Agdola was the beginning of the Bayis Sheni? The answer is that with all the tzaras, they lost the Seder. They knew that the 18 brachas, and then they also were Mosef in Yavne, Birchas Haminim, which they didn't have to begin with, the Gemara says. But what they didn't have is Masader Seder HaBrachas. They didn't have a Seder. And they were looking for, with their Chachma, with their Ruach HaKodesh, and with their Torah, they were looking for a way to make the Shmona Esrei in order, and that is the order in which we daven today. Masader Seder Shmona Esrei. So, for instance, the Avos came first. I believe that we always knew that the first comes the Avos and the Kedusha, but that's where it got confusing. So what Chazal did in Yavne is first they put in Ata Chonein L'Adam Das. That was the first thing. Second one was Hashivenu Avinu L'Seirasecha. In the your art scroll siddur, it's very nicely marked. Bina, Teshuva, Slicha, Geula, etc., Refuah. So each one of these, there's a Seder. They said, now let's talk about Refuah. Now let's talk about Parnasa. There was a Seder. Why one comes after the other. Fascinating things about the Seder of Hadvarim, because, for instance, La Malshinim Al Sikva comes right before Binyan Yerushalayim. I'm just saying. It's a very interesting, it doesn't go with Tshuva or Slicha or even with Geula per se. Makabetz Nitchei Amo Yisrael, that's Kibbutz Golios, that comes earlier. But then right before Yerushalayim Iracha comes Birchas Haminim. I'm sorry, it comes Lamal Shinim. And then comes Tzadikim. Okay, so the Seder is clear. L'Inyanenu, we have Ata Chonein L'Adam Das, Umelamed Lenoish Bina. Let's work with Ashkenaz here. The first bracha that we say, Chazal saw fit, the first thing we say is, give us Das. Can't do anything without Das. In one place the Gemara says, Imen l'cha Das, Tshuva b'nayin. Like, you can't have Tshuva before you have Das. So first you have to have Das, which needs to be understood. And then comes Tshuva, Ashivenu Avinu L'Sarasecha, Karvenu Malkeinu L'Avodasecha. The Gemara has this was a big discussion in Yavne, whether Chonen Adas should come before Tshuva. Because Tshuva feels like that's the right thing to go first, no? I don't. But there was a big discussion, and the discussion was mostly in Psukim. So there's different Psukim, but the Gemara's maskana is that we do it the way we do it, because the Gemara Megillah brings a pasuk, Levavai Yavin Vishav. Levavai Yavin, what does your lave do? Levavai Yavin, first it understands, Bina, Vishav, and then you can start doing Tshuva. Al-Kainam Rinan, Tshuva, Acher Bina. And that's why the bracha of Tshuva comes after the bracha of Bina, because the Seder HaPasuk, but it's also a logical Seder. All this it says in Megillah Yud Zayin Amud Beis. let's go back to the sentence for a minute, see if we understand it better. V'yadua da'atshuva nimshach me'abina shebalev. That it's important to, I have to admit, I haven't thought about this too much. Like the spark of tshuva, it comes, this is Reb Tzadok saying a deeper pshat in the Chacham Shebiyavne. It's a deeper understanding. It's not just like, well, if you don't have any brains, how are you supposed to do tshuva? Or it's not just like, let's say you want to make a Baal tshuva, so first you go through tell them the codes and tell them the 9 proofs of God, and then we can talk about tshuva. That might all be true, might not be true. That's a question of technique, It depends if you're a Lubavitcher or a Torah like that. What's the approach? But that's not our discussion here. The discussion here is we have to know where the whole idea, what tshuva is, and where it originates in here. Where does it come? And the answer is, he says, Yadua, what you see from the Shemona Esrei, is that tshuva originates from the Bina Shebalev. Tshuva originates from the Bina Shebalev. That's what you see from Shemona Esrei. You feel you want to explain it before I do? Bina Shebalev. What does it mean?
Bina is after Chachma. So Bina is when I understand what could be and both sides. It's like God grant me the wisdom to understand what I can and what I cannot do.
You see, I know Yechiel is a makubal lately, so. Yeah. So let me explain it in my complicated words that I can try to understand. Havchana. Is that the word you use?
Saying it's machim, you distinguish.
Where you can make distinctions, you're saying.
Means distinction.
If I don't know what's good and what's bad, if I will never look at myself like, well, what I did was maybe okay, was maybe not okay, I can never do tshuva. That's why the first thing we say, because without bina,
Same thing.
I will never grow.
He's not saying distinction. So let me give you a little bit of background here. That in the 7 spheros, which in fact, let's do one more line. V'noida, it is also well known. It is also well known. Desheva madregos heim b'yitzias davar lefoil, that there are 7 stages in anything being created, which we call the 7 spheros. So there are 7 stages in creation until it comes lemaisa, if you will, until it actually is. I'll just give you obviously, this is another chidush here of a taich in the spheros. He's saying a taich in the spheros. That spheros is not just, well, there's a sphere of chesed, a gur, there's a tiferes, netzach, hod, yisod, malchus. It's not all over the place. It's a process. And the process is, till you come to malchus, malchus is the ultimate lemaisa. Malchus is like from the earth. It's in the earth. It's permeated the earth. That's what malchus is. So, but how does the whole thing, the stage work? Let's just give you a simple example so we could follow it. Let's say you want to create a new kind of cup or a new kind of a digital gadget or whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference. You want to make something and sell it. So step 1, idea. Idea means nothing to anybody. It's not worth any money. Idea. Step 2, examining, processing, thinking it through, not just an idea, does this make any sense? Bina. Step 3, okay, I understand this clearly. Now let's put it on paper. Now let's show it to an engineer. Now let's take it and make a prototype, et cetera, until you bring it to market. So I don't have to make up all the different processes of bringing something to market, but we're talking about a person coming to market, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates a person. And the person and everything in this world goes through 7 spheros, or 7, as he puts it, madregos, and b'yitzias davar lefoil. Where does it all start? Binas halev. Why? So as Rabbi Yechiel said, because there are 7 spheros, but on top of the 7, which we've all seen the tree, and on top of the 7 spheros, there's the mochin, the higher level, the spheros that we're not so understanding of, and that is the way we usually say it. The way that goes is keser, chachma, bina. In many sifrei Chassidus, it says chachma, bina, vadas, as you know, the whole movement named after it. So chachma, bina, vadas is no different. There's no machlokes of what the mochin is. It's just that on top, it's a triangle. So on top, just from a chart point of view, you have keser, and then you have chachma and bina. Or if you're not involved with the keser, because that's way too high up, there's also a down pointing triangle, which is chachma, bina, das. Doesn't make any difference. It's really like, I'm not sure what the geometric symbol is for 2 triangles, like a diamond, like that. What?
Rhombus.
A rhombus? Okay.
Maybe no.
Okay, well, if you have a suffix, it doesn't work. But there's no machlokes here in what the spheros are. There is no such thing as a machlokes. This comes to us already from Adam Harishon and from Sefer HaYisirah. We know what these are. The reason we don't learn so much about the upper spheres is not so much that we don't care about them, we don't understand them, and they're not part of our process. This is extremely important for the learning we're going to do. They're not part of our process. It's like what's going on a higher level has nothing, very little to do with decisions that we make every minute of every day, thousands of times a day, or the things that we make, or the things that we do, things that we say. That's all in the 7 spheres. But perhaps the exception to the rule in life is teshuva, because teshuva comes from bina, which is way up there, and from bina it goes down to the 7 spheres. And the first thing that it does is it hits the lave, and the lave goes out. This is not something that's difficult to relate to, because we all know that we call lave like a feeling, an emotion. But when Chazal say lave, very often, and you have to always research this, what they really mean is perhaps an emotion, but emotion is lower. What they mean is the neshama itself. It means the neshama. So it comes about through bina. Everybody with me, following me? This is, if you don't understand this deeply, so we're on the same page. I'm only saying how the whole thing works. Like this we can understand and visualize how the whole thing works. Just one second. What? So let me explain here that in Pashat Pshat there's chachma, which is a kernel of wisdom, as Yechiel explains, like a piece of data. Data probably comes like connected to the word das, but there's a piece of information, a bit of information. It's worthless unto itself. So Hashem in his creation starts with a spark. That part is the yesh me'ayin. And then it begins to process. You see, I'll tell you something else, just an interesting thing that in all of Sefer Zohar, so Chachma is considered Zachar, and Bina is considered Nekeva, Nukva Shabbaspheres. It all goes down. So the Tein Lanu Leiv Lahavin, Sembli Benu Bina, Lahavin Lahaskil Ishmaya Lilmad Alam. It's like the first level of processing. Before that is Yesh Me'ayin, but the first level of processing, whatever happens in Shemayim is Bina, and hear me clearly. what happens with us goes from the bina to the bina shebalev. I'm pointing to the lave, but not necessarily lave. I always, like the first thing I noticed about Rav Moshe Shapiro when I started going to his shiurim years ago, so every time he said the neshama, he went like this. And every time he said the lave, he went like this. So I'm sure that was a pedagogic decision that he made, because everything was very, very thought out. But we tend to say, like, I pledge allegiance, we tend to talk about our heart, and that's also a good metaphor. From there, everything comes out. But we're talking about the beginning of processing above the actual process of the spheros. So what we say is tshuva. The one sentence is, Yadua, it's well known, Deha tshuva nimshach mehabina shebalev. That tshuva begins, nimshach, tshuva begins with the bina shebalev. See, let me tell you how I understand this. And it relates to me on a daily basis. My, not just understanding, but my avoda, and I've mentioned before, that we get up in the morning, al natilas yadayim, and then you say Asher Yatzar Es Adam B'Chachma. So Asher Yatzar Es Adam B'Chachma is thank you Hashem for my body. It doesn't mean at all thank you for letting me go to the bathroom. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about yes, nekavim, chalulim. Unbelievable the way the heart works, the brain works, the nervous system works, everything, the muscles work. That's all nekavim, chalulim. Why we say it when we go to the bathroom is a halacha question, but you need some kind of a lamaisa, I guess. So that's the lamaisa of it. But the hakara that we have when we wake up in the morning is, oh my God, I have a body and it's functioning and it works. And to whatever extent it works and whatever extent it doesn't work, it's working. So here I am, I'm alive, yes? So that's we say Asher Yatzar. And then the way we set up our tefillos, right after we thank Hashem for the body, we thank Hashem for our neshama. Elikai, neshama shenosata bi tahirahi. This is so important. Atavarasa, atayitzarta, atanafachta bi. That it's so important that you took this body that I woke up with, and it was here last night also, my body, but it's working, it's a functional body, and now you're putting into it a neshama, a new neshama, new and renewed neshama, just like new. You have a neshama because it goes through the same levels as the original bria of Adam Rishon. Ata Varasa, Ata Yitzarta, Bria, Yitzira. That's how the world works, right? Atzilus, Bria, Yitzira. Ata Nafachta Bi. So not only am I thanking you for my goof, Asher Yatzar Es Adam B'Chachma, but I'm also thanking you for the neshama that you gave me. And there's, by the way, in that bracha, there's a huge chiddush. The kol zman shan neshama b'kirbi moidani lefanecha melachai v'kaim sheh. This neshama allows me to have gratitude. It's an interesting kol zman shan. Not we're thanking him for the neshama also, but we say often. Ata varasa, ata yitzarta, ata nefachta bi, va'ata mishamra b'kirbi, even though it's something very spiritual and it could just, no, you take care of it. Ata asid litla mimani, there's going to, maybe that means tonight when we go to sleep, or maybe that means when we die, machlaikas. Ulachzira bi lasid lavai. Kol zman sha neshama b'kirbi, now as long as I have this neshama here, Moda ani lefanecha Hashem Elokai v'Elokai v'Sai Riboin kol ha'masim adon kol ha'neshamais, and that's where we can make a bracha, and we say Baruch Atah Hashem ha'machzir neshamais lifgarim mesim. So you created the body, thank you very much, and we created the neshama, which is put into our. If I do this right, these two brachas, I'm just I'm not saying this I'm saying just to teach. If I feel like I've done this right, these two brachas take me about 20 minutes to say. I mean, you gave me a body that's functioning, and you gave me a neshama. We say also, when we say tachnun, that don't take away my neshama, ki ein b'mava sichrecha bish'ol mi yodelach. There's no haidah. Haidah requires life, and it requires a spiritual life, because if you don't have a spiritual life, your body just reverts to the ego. And you can't give hodah to anybody. You can't be grateful for anything, because you become like, if you're just ego, so it becomes this kind of like narcissistic existence where there is nothing else and everything is just being manipulated to serve me. So the first thing we do is moda ani lefanecha moedim anachnu lach ein b'shol mi yodelach. Let me do this tafkid in life, which is to give hodah. Now, I'm getting to teshuva. This is all new for me, right? I have a new neshama. So if I have a new neshama put into my functional body, my guf, and I thank you for both. So what is this neshama doing here? What am I supposed to do with it? Like, what my nafka mina that I have this neshama? So the answer is, it's so interesting. We say this in L'David twice a day. L'cha amar libi bakshufanai. Who's talking here? Yeah, right. Work it out. I mean, just explain. L'cha, who's talking? Who's wrote this? David. So he's saying to Hashem, L'cha amar libi. To you, my heart is saying. One second. What's simple chat? L'cha. He's talking to Hashem, right? L'cha amar libi bakshu fanai. What does that mean? So, L'cha amar libi, and now he's talking to Hashem. Bakshu fanai. So, intelligently, Rabari said, it can't be that L'cha amar libi, it's bishvil amar libi. Bakshu fanai. David HaMelech is stating, it's Rashi, David HaMelech is stating that my heart, which in this case means my neshama, as it's clear over there, my neshama is constantly screaming out to me, saying, Bakshu Fanai, meaning it's Ki'ilu, Hashem put this gadget called the neshama, planted it within me, and it is calling to me all the time and saying, Bakshu Fanai, Bakshu Fanai, Bakshu Fanai, search me out. And I don't know if it's plural, if it's possessive. I don't know, Baki and Diktuk here.
It's like a command that Hashem is
Right.
sending to all people saying, Bakshu Fanai.
Right, but where is he saying it? How is he saying it? Through my neshama. That's what's cool over here. So what's happening here is, what is your neshama doing? It's saying Bakshu Fanai. First step is Moida ani lefanecha. I got to get out of my goof. I just got to get out of your goof. And then you listen to what your neshama is saying. That Bakshu Fanai is tshuva. That's what it means. Pasuk, the pasuk we all know. Hashem. Yadata ayoim, Harshas Veschanu. Listen to the Seder, the nuance of the Lashon. V'yadata ayoim, Chachma. V'ashevoisa el livavecha. You know this pasuk because they say Nalenu every day. Yadata ayoim v'ashevoisa el livavecha, ki Hashem hu Elokim b'shamayim imal v'al aretz mitachas einoid. So, Right. And then Al Kain Nekava, that was written by Yoshua bin Nun. So it was written by Yoshua bin Nun, Aleinu, written by Yoshua bin Nun, who spoke about the process. He came to Eretz Yisrael, quoting Moshe Rabbeinu, which he often did, talking about the process of V'ashevoisa el levavecha. Part of that was coming to Eretz Yisrael. Yoshua, read Aleinu. The second part of it is written by Achan, Al Kain Nekava is Achan. That's Achan, and what to say about that also. But what we're saying here is V'ashevoisa v'yadata hayoim. The pasuk is magnificent. V'yadata hayoim v'ashevoisa el levavecha. So Hashevoisa means tshuva. So tshuva has Yediyah. You don't need a Gemara Megillah, and we don't need the Shemona Esrei. It's clear in the Torah. V'yadata hayoim v'ashevoisa el levavecha. The tshuva comes from Bina Shebeleif. Nimshach. His lashon is nimshach.
Making your heart aware.
What you mean the pasuk? What the pasuk means?
Yeah.
You are returning to your heart.
Hashevoisa.
That's what it means. You are returning to your heart. I think that's what it means. Hashevoisa levavecha for our purposes. So here's the point I'm getting at. I don't want to get bogged down in diktuk here. It happens to me. I thought about it a lot, but it's not a diktuk question. It's an avoda. It's a daily exercise, a chiyuv of what we have to do, and that is v'yadata hayoim. Chazal say b'chol yoim v'yoim. That's what Chazal say. V'yadata hayoim v'ashevoisa levavecha. Listen to your neshama. Listen to your neshama, which is bina, as we've explained. So, like, you have to, however you do it, you could do it in Shemona Esrei, you could do it by learning Mussar, you could do it by learning Chassidus, maybe you meditate. However you do it, there's not only a possibility, but an obligation for everybody to have a little bit of a discussion with their neshama every single day. This is not, if not, you miss the whole Yiddishkeit. The whole thing is, Elikai neshama shenasata b'tahiri. What am I supposed to do? And there's so much interference and there's so much noise, and it's so difficult to get clarity as to what I'm supposed to do. And I do the wrong things all the time. So go back to who you are, what you are, your neshama, your lave, and listen to what it's telling you to do. It's bakshu fanai. Now, bakshu fanai, by the way, one more point about this, is also not an easy exercise. Because what are you supposed to do? Bakshu fanai. Where are you? What is the bakshu fanai? So, I mean, you can understand that perhaps it means, without thinking about it too much, perhaps it means like you could try to find like Hashem in the Bria. You know, bakshu fanai, see where the hashgacha pratis is, see where the miracles are, things like that. But I believe in the Malbim and in the Gra. To me, the mashmois of it is that bakshu fanai is, which we find all through Tehillim. David HaMelech was always looking for the Pnei Hashem. He's always looking for the Pnei Hashem. It's all over Tehillim. What is the Pnei Hashem? So I saw this in the Gra, and I believe it's in the Malbim also, that the Pnei Hashem simply means, what is my calling? What am I supposed to be doing? What is my particular tachlis? And the Gra is Meirich on this, and he says that everyone's going to get a different answer. So if you just say bakshu fanai, sort of like an intellectual exercise of like, well, look how, if not for this, that wouldn't have happened, hashgacha pratis, that's very nice. That's a nice thing. Or you can look at an apple and you can see all the niflais habayir, also nice. But bakshu fanai, the bakashas pnei Hashem, is specifically my neshama telling me, because it is the signal from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it is the signal from the bina, it's the bina that was put in the lave, where I can listen to that neshama and I could try to understand, what am I supposed to do today? What am I supposed to do this minute? What is the Ratzon Hashem? Gil, you want to tell your story with the Vishnu Rebbe? Tell the story.
I flew the Rebbe a couple of weeks ago,
very pashut. Because it's not more. Gil is a pilot, and Gil flew the Rebbe, Vishnitzer Rebbe from one place, from Israel someplace, and Gil sent to me a couple of days before. What should I talk to him about? Should I talk to him? So I said, yeah, ask him how to become a tzaddik. He's a tzaddik. Ask him how to become a tzaddik. So he asked him how to become a tzaddik, and he said, whenever you have a decision to make, do the Ratzon Hashem. Not complicated. The complicated part is, how do you know what's the Ratzon Hashem? How do you know what the Ratzon Hashem is? The answer is that the neshama is telling you. So if you go the wrong way and you listen to the wrong side, like sort of the ego, so now you have to do tshuva. But the thing is like that the tshuva is getting under the hood or above the whole process, is what the whole chiddush of this paragraph is, under the hood and down. So before, Bina is, here's the main thing, it should have taken me a second to say. Bina is above the 7 spheros. So the processing of life, the processing of our minds, the processing of everything we do, everything that goes mina koach elapo, whether Hashem is making it or we're making it, that's the 7 spheros. Everything goes through chesed, gvur, tiferes, netzach, hod, yesod, malchus, until it becomes real and permeated into our lives, until we're integrated completely. But above that, before that even begins, is bina. So now here's a hack, because you can do tshuva. Or when you do tshuva, which let's not, or people say, always gets me, I'm making tshuva. Do you ever hear that expression, people? So it's a funny thing. What are you making? But I guess no different than making a bracha. I don't know what they're making there either.
It's just a bad translation of the Hebrew.
Macht a bracha. Doing tshuva. You don't make tshuva. You don't make a bracha. I don't know why we make brachas. Hashem makes brachas. We're thanking him, or I don't. Okay, this is my different pet peeve.
Because in Hebrew, is make and do. It's the same
Okay,
word.
but that's a bad translation. But in Yiddish, you say machta bracha. So, which is interesting. So it goes before modern spoken Hebrew. Machta bracha. Okay, maybe there's Kabbalah to that also. Why you make a bracha, why you make tshuva. But what we're talking about is accessing tshuva. That's a whole different story. Meaning, when my process has gone bad, I made wrong decisions. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not on the right trajectory. I'm not getting where I'm supposed to be, or I messed up completely, killed somebody. So everybody can do tshuva. How do you do tshuva? It's illegal. Doicha loisa seisha b'Torah. So let me just end off with where we should be starting. Docha losa seisha b'Torah. It's an illegal process. Why is it an illegal process? Because if somebody, to take an extreme, actually killed somebody, so if there's a Sanhedrin and the verdict is guilty, we kill him. Now, what if we see him in the corner doing tshuva? He's crying. I promise I did tshuva. So we kill you anyway. How come? Oh, so one sheet in the Rishonim is, why do we kill him anyway? Sanhedrin, clear in the Rashi and Tosfos. One sheet of the Rishonim is that who knows that he did tshuva. We have to be machmer and kill you. Another sheet is it's a kapara for him. A lot of times you have misa and mechaper, so it's a kapara for him. And another sheet is that the tshuva helps his neshama, doesn't help his guf. So the tshuva is going to help him forever. He's going to go to Gan Eden. In other words, it's a little bit different than it's a kapara, right? In other words, not just as a kapara, but the tshuva 100% reverses the chet, if it's real tshuva. But it's not just we don't know. It's that, okay, you were basaka in your neshama. So it only means mikan ulaba. Uh-huh. Exactly right. Okay. So what are we saying here? That the hack of tshuva is that you're able to get above the process of the Sheva Sfiros. That's this whole paragraph of introduction. You're able to get above the process of the Sheva Sfiros, and somehow or another, the Gemara says, well, that's not Gemara. Chazal say someplace, Ein Teshuva ba'akum. It's a Jewish thing. In other words, a certain kind of a neshama that you're able to access even before the whole process begins. So the tweak is here. So that's the pshat that if tshuva, let me just sum this all up. If tshuva is, tshuva, it's the season. You don't have to wait till Yom Kippur, avoid the holiday rush. You can do tshuva right now. So if you want to do tshuva, and you read a book on it, and you go through the process of tshuva, even if that book is the Rambam, so you kind of like miss the point, because it has to be nimshach mehabina shebelev. I'm not saying it isn't. I mean, not everybody's tshuva is tshuva, but you make tshuva. But the way tshuva is supposed to work is first you got to get up to the bina shebelev. You have to get to the moichin, and then from there it kind of like a reset of the whole process, and that's how it's possible. Like what Reish Lakish says. Let me just take two things. It's possible what Reish Lakish says, that it can go, you can go back lemafreya like this, because up there in Bina there's no zman, right? You can go lemafreya. Not only you could go lemafreya, you can even turn it in Shemayim. There's no bad things, right? So you could even make zdainos into schuyas. Once you access this higher place, you can take a bad thing and turn it into a good thing. Wonderland. You're above you're above gravity. You're above anything which is natural in the Sheva Sfiros, because it's nimshach mebina shebelev. So it's possible that, for instance, and this is, by the way, what all the Gemaras are talking about. It's possible that zedainos nasik is. You could actually erase something, the mafreya, and that's why we could say that it's docha los hasei shebetorah. Why? Let me end with this. What is the los hasei shebetorah? Docha los hasei shebetorah. So Reb Tzadok says, if you turn a minute, I say the Gemara says, Gedolah Teshuva Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Gedolah Teshuva shedoiches los hasei shebetorah, shenemar, and quotes a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. Yirmiyahu is admonishing the people, and he's saying, like, you were all Avodah Zarah, and now you want to come back, and now you want to return to Hashem. Who says Hashem's even going to take you in? That was the talk of Yirmiyahu HaNavi. But Rashi Ki'ilu asks a question that's not a los hasei shebetorah. That's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, yes. So the los hasei shebetorah is a different thing. The los hasei shebetorah is in Parshas Kiseitze, where in Kiseitze the Torah says, Ki yikach ish isha uva'ala, if you get married, v'hayim lo simsachein be'einav, there's a part of marriage in Judaism that if she's not matzachein, ki matzah ba'ervas davar, kasav lo sefer krisis, there's such a thing as a get. If you get married, doesn't work, get. There's such a thing as a get. That's a Jewish thing. We don't say there's no such thing. V'yatzam b'beisai, so she leaves the house. V'holcha v'hoisli shacher, and she goes and marries somebody else. Now, says the Torah, the scenario is, usneya ha'ish ha'achrain. The second husband doesn't like her either. Now I understand. He doesn't like her either. Sneya, because of law, sefer krisos, nasam biyadav v'shilcham be'beisai, so he also sends her away. So says the Torah, din la yuchal bala harishain asher shilcha lashav l'kachta liyos isha. The first husband is not allowed to take her back. That's the din. If they got divorced and she didn't go ahead and marry somebody else, so then it's a mitzvah to take her back. That's a machzor grushase. Once she's married, you can't take her back. Ki toyeva hi lifnei Hashem v'loisachti es ha'aretz asher Hashem lekecha noisin l'chan nachla. The lois hasei shebetorah, the Gemara says, is exactly this Lysa say here, and this is what Yirmiyahu was touching up, if you will. Rashi says this pasuk. He doesn't say the pasuk that the Gemara says. So that the Lysa say Shabbatar is that Hashem is not even allowed to take you back after you worshipped Avodah Zarah. After Golus, and He sent you out of Eretz Yisrael, let's Golus v'shilcha mibeisai. Not even allowed to take you back. But Gedol Tshuva, Shadochalos Hasei Shabbatara, that it overrides this din in the Chumash. And why does it override? How could it override? And the answer is because you're accessing above the system. That's why it could override. Because it goes to you're going all the way up to the Bina Shebelev. And if the tshuva starts with our discussion, with our neshama, which is our access, our screen, if you will, to the Bina Shebelev, so now anything is possible. Anything is possible, including changing our whole being and changing the whole world and everything. Our whole Metzius can change if we can access above all the processing, get through all the bureaucracy, all the 7 spheres, and go right to the top. And that's where the Bina